Hi everybody, welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee, and today I'm going to be talking about Changes. Not the hit song, the one that you're thinking of from that one artist. Not that song. The other one called Changes. Not that one either. Actually, I was part of this Spotify Playlist of the Month club for a while, where everyone submitted different playlists that everyone had to listen to, and I did one that was actually just 10 different songs titled Changes. I wasn't invited back to that club. It's the point aside. I'm going to be talking about games where my rating have changed since I did the review. Tom does this a little bit in a series called Look Back, where he looks at all of the reviews he did 1 year, 5, 10, 20 years ago, and then he talks about if the rating's the same or different. I don't have the same tenure doing this here on the Dice Tower channel as Tom does, but I wanted to talk about some of the games where my opinion has changed since the Dice Tower review went up, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and start with the drops. The first one here is Tabanussi, which I gave a 6 originally when I reviewed it, and now for me it's dropped down to a 5. This is the last of the T games from Board and Dice. Daniel Tascini designs that Board and Dice put out. Started with Teotihuacan, which is one of my all-time favorites, and as more of them came out, I just started to kind of tire of them. The last few, Tabanussi and Terracotta Army, were both very impressive designs, had a lot of player interaction for an involved Euro game, but Tabanussi in particular had so much else going on in it, where there was these dice drafts, and it was very limiting to where you could go take your next action based on the number that you drafted. Mix that with this high level of player interaction where as players are taking spots that you wanted to, do I want to do this action now that I'm here a whole turn later when I realize it's actually going to help this person because they laid out a couple of foundations that I could build on, but it's going to benefit them. I think that mix wasn't done elegantly in Tabanussi. I think that there's a lot of points of frustration with the game, with how limiting it is and how procedural it is. If I gave it a 6 originally, it was a game that I was maybe interested in coming back to and putting my feelers back on it, but at this point, I'm not interested. It's really dropped off my radar completely, so it's a 5. Not a broken or bad game, just no interest from me. So Tabanussi, now a 5. Another drop here comes from Flamecraft. I originally gave this a 7.5. It's just dropped a little bit, down to a 7 for me. I enjoy this game still, but I feel like for the amount of reward that I'm getting out of it, it is a little bit more procedural of a game than I want it to be. It is fun, it's charming as the town builds up and you get to play these special ability cards to get different benefits, take your dragon somewhere, get resources, or complete these different objectives. It's nice, it's a very pleasant game. I can see why people really, really enjoy it, but for me it's just a good solid game. I could still come back to it and have fun with it, but I don't have that big of a drive. It is, zounds, of course, ahead of so many other games in terms of production value and the welcoming nature of the art and everything. It's a very enticing game, but I find just the actual loop of what I'm doing over the course of the game, it's dropped just a little bit for me, and those other bells and whistles don't impress me. So yeah, my core score dropped just a little bit to a 7 for Flamecraft. The other drop for me is Ark Nova, from an 8 down to a 7. This is a good game. It's a well-made game. There's so much going on with it, but for me it has two main issues. One is that it is very long. It still continues to be long. Maybe it's best played on Board Game Arena or in like a digital implementation. And the other issue that I have with it is that I still feel locked out of certain cards that I feel like I'm really working towards building because of the tags or the iconography system that the game has. It still confuses me, and it's bothered me since I first played it that some of these symbols, you can have an extra way to get them by doing the work on the sideboards here so I can make sure to get these. Okay, that's a better level of flexibility. I can get those tags that are requirements from cards, or if I can't find them in cards, then I can just go over here and I can, pair up with some other universities across the world. I love that thematically. It bothers me that I can't do that with some of the animal symbols. If I want to build a particular gorilla or an orangutan that requires 3 of the ape symbols, I just can't do it unless I draw them from the deck. I know the expansion gives more ways to fish cards out of the deck. Fish. Aquatic. But in the base game, I haven't tried the expansion, but in this base game, it's been bothering me more that I think about it. It had this opportunity to improve that that issue from terraforming Mars, and it wasn't able to. So for me, Ark Nova's a 7. Red Rising is now one of these odd cases where, in the Foursquare review, I gave it a 6.5. I thought it was a game that was almost there. I came back and I actually did a re-review, but just of the solo mode, a review of just the Automa Factory solo mode way to play it, and it became one of my favorite solo games. I gave that an 8.5. So I'm kind of adjusting my rating overall of the game perhaps to a 7.5. I'm not sure really the best way to kind of explain that score, but as a solo game, I think that Red Rising is fantastic. It allows me to live in that Red Rising world, appreciate the cards that have all those fun interaction points that remind me of reading the books. It lets me kind of live in that theme, see these cool illustrations of a lot of the characters. Some of the illustrations are a little goofy, but a lot of the illustrations are pretty good and just make me feel those feelings I felt during going through the original trilogy. I haven't read the follow-up trilogy. I'm really afraid to, because a lot of characters die in those books. I made it to the end of the first trilogy. I was like, this was good. And everyone else lived happily ever after. I really enjoy that book series, so I wanted to enjoy Red Rising more than I did. And when I finally played it solo, I thought, this gets rid of a lot of the complaints I have, where there's just a little bit of the chaos that comes from the other players. Too many players, playing at the higher player counts means that I can't really even pay attention to the lineup, the market of cards available, because everything's going to switcheroo like wild before it comes back to my turn. Some of the take that cards are obviously not going to have an impact when you play it solo. I think this is a really good solo game, a little bit of a forgotten Stonemaier game of all of them, one of the least talked about in many a game, but this one for me is a great solo game. So overall, bumping it up from the main rating of a 6.5 up to a 7.5, I think. There's become a little bit of an inside joke in the comments and on the Dice Tower Facebook group and Discord that I hate Unmatched, which is, it's humorous, it's in jest, because I really like the Unmatched system, and it has grown on me a lot. The whole joke comes from me giving Unmatched Adventures a 9.5 instead of a 10, but originally the first Unmatched review that I was in was with the Marvel sets in the Winter Spectacular a few years ago. We did live reviews. We tried those out. It was an interesting experiment. We sat there and we said the intro, and then we said, let's show you the overview. And then we sat there and watched the overview play and realized, this is why we don't do reviews live. It was an interesting experience being on the other end of that. But you can just go watch those now, and they look like regular reviews. So we did the Marvel sets, the original 2 that came out, which was Hell's Kitchen and then Redemption Row. So I gave both of those a 7.5 originally. I think that Hell's Kitchen has some good characters, Daredevil and Slingshot Guy, Bullseye, and Elektra. And my overall estimation of Unmatched as a combat system has moved up. So I originally gave it a 7.5. That one's gone up to an 8 for me, because I enjoy the little variety of that set. Bullseye being a ranged character, but being a little bit squishier, having a few of those special abilities. But really, for me, the standout of these two is going to be Redemption Row. That has gone up from a 7.5 up to an 8.5 for me. I adore Redemption Row. It has several of my favorite characters. I don't know anything about Luke Cage. I never watched his show. But Ghost Rider and Moon Knight are both just so fun and quirky. But I like that Luke Cage is kind of a big tanky character. I love that Ghost Rider can ride around on his motorcycle and set people on fire. Moon Knight with his multiple shifting personalities. Having watched the show after playing that set, it really made me appreciate that a whole lot more. And like I said, I enjoy Unmatched a lot more than I used to with as these like 2-player kind of combative games, and they also 3 or 4-player kind of combat games have grown on me more. I've been finding the niches I've been finding those little special games that speak to me, and Unmatched is one of them, so all the way up to an 8.5 for me. Another big climber here from Restoration Games is Return to Dark Tower. I gave it originally a 7.5, and I could see why I did that. One, the sticker shock, the pricing of it and everything, but, and that does affect me a little bit more than I think some of the other reviewers on the channel, where I look at, Do I feel like I'm getting the value's worth from what this product costs? This has climbed up to an 8.5 for me. And I feel like just playing more. I really have come back to Dark Tower many times since that review. And for me, yes, the value is there. The big electronic tower is impressive in a lot of ways, but I've also seen some people call it just a dumb electronic Pez dispenser, and I would disagree with that. I think that what it adds to the game is, well, one, a giant obstacle in the middle of the table. That part is still an annoyance, but it does facilitate a lot of information very quickly. Where cubes are, the skulls are dropping out to, when you have glyphs facing you, that little bit of tension when something lights up and you reveal it and 3 skulls just pop out into your kingdom. Yes, that is good, right? Is it a little bit gimmicky? Not entirely. I feel like the value's there because it lets you know, hey, certain glyphs are facing you. This is going to cost you more. It's going to be harder for you to take these actions, but stuff will rotate and change in there. It's a marvel of engineering for a board game consumer product. Yes, it is very expensive, but I've played through so many now of the different nemesis, the antagonists. I've played the different scenarios where you're trying to march the tree ents in on the territory. You're trying to go on do more like dungeon-based scenarios with it, or combat-heavy scenarios. I think that this game offers a lot of variety. The way that it uses advantages instead of die rolls, and that you are digitizing these combat cards and creating a bit of a memory in that system, especially when you're fighting the main boss. That's all so impressive to me. And so, yes, I think that this game still has that value to it. It's pricey. It's not for everyone, but if you want an adventure game like this that feels so different from what else is on the market, this has still not been matched in terms of what other companies are trying to accomplish, I think. So an 8.5 for me. This has grown so much. SkyTeam I had originally given an 8.5, and it has climbed up to a 9 for me. I find that this game is so impressive in what it accomplishes with very few rules, relatively few components, and just a great stellar production. I think that when I reviewed this game originally, I gave it an 8.5. It's a standout, one of my favorite co-op games, and I just wasn't sure how long I was going to keep coming back to it, and I've been really pleasantly surprised. Like, I was expecting to want to come back to it, but as a game reviewer, we play so many different games. And yet, this game has still stood out as one that I'm coming back to relax from playing other games even. Kind of like a wind down at the end of a night, because it's pretty quick. It's easy to set up. This is the airport we're doing. Okay. You're the pilot, I'm the co-pilot. Doesn't matter, right? Either way. And we just start playing, Wendy and I, and it's such a nice, relaxing, calming, and yet engaging brain puzzle to play when I don't want to be doing a lot of other things. Or when we've played a bigger game, learned a heavy rule set, played something for review, and then we say, oof, why don't I just play something for fun? And this is that excellent game that I can do that. You can play it at the end of a big adventure. You can play 2 or 3 of these back to back, and that could feel like you're satisfying gaming for the night. This accomplishes a lot of the same things that The Crew does for me, and I'm really happy to have both of those as options that I can come back to any day of the week and say, yeah, we got time to play SkyTeam. Playing through more of the airports and more of the modules and everything, this is just shot up for me. It's a 9 now for SkyTeam. Lastly, I want to talk about Heat, Pedal to the Metal. Another game I originally gave an 8.5. Another game I'm now bumping up to a 9. I have thoroughly been enjoying all of the extra content in Heat. I had, at the time of the review, dabbled a little bit with some of the extra stuff, those special racing modules, but I hadn't done the championship race where you do the 3 games. You do a 3 games circuit, I suppose you would call it, where you are going to carry over your ranking from one race to the next. And this adds a really great tension to it. We're racing for second place matters. So someone else is winning first, all right. But I'm going to get second because that total will add up. And you get more opportunities to get equipment cards, like specialty equipment. It makes this game amazing. I will still, of course, play it majority of the time as one-off, like just one-shot races, because that's fun. It's neat that I had a bad race, there's no consequences for it. But really playing with those champions, really just utilizing all of the content that comes in that box. It's like Days of Wonder forgot that expansions exist. They're like, here's 4 maps. Here's a bunch of things. Here's like the the solo mode or the low player count mode extra racers. Here's a really cool, groovy equipment that you can draft or unlock over the course of the championship. I like how all of that works together. I played a 2-player game of the whole championship with the 4 other legendary racers to pad out the whole 6 racers on the board, and it felt incredible. And then you really start to, as you play this more, feel like you know how much to try to move in different moments to be able to take that slipstreaming and move past areas, how much to sacrifice heat from your engine in order to slipstream past one of those corners. You know that you're going to be eating a bunch of heat, but you're going to be in the lead because no one else is brave enough to take that corner and blow out their tires like you did. Man, there is so much rewarding in heat. And so it's great. It's amazing. So yeah, 9. And I fear that even a 9 might be too low of a bump up for me. But we'll have to see. I really adore these games, and I adore gaming in general. So, of course, some things will drop and some things will increase over time. But those have been kind of my biggest changes here in the few years, the 3 years that I've been reviewing for the Dice Tower. Thanks so much, y'all, for spending some time with me talking about my changes. I hope that you have fun changing.